Le gouvernement a la possibilité de faire ce qu'il faut et de défendre le rôle du Canada comme chef de file mondial dans la défense des droits de la personne et de la dignité inhérente à tous les peuples. A growing body of evidence, including the testimony of survivors, some of whom we have with us today, satellite imagery, leaked documents, smuggled videos, and many other sources document these atrocities, which consist of systematic population control, sexual violence, and the mass detention of millions of people. We can no longer ignore this. We must call it for what it is, a genocide. Le sous-comité canadien des droits internationaux de la personne a conclu qu'un génocide était en cours, tout comme deux administrations américaines. Conservatives believe in the importance of working multilaterally. We therefore call on the Trudeau government to vote for the motion and join the Biden administration in officially recognizing the Uyghur genocide. If Parliament adopts the motion tonight, we call on the government to uphold democratic norms and respect the will of Parliament and officially recognize the Uyghur genocide. Nous demandons au gouvernement d'encourager la reconnaissance du génocide par nos alliés. Finally, we call on the government to uphold its obligations under the 1948 Genocide Convention and work with allies to take coordinated action in response to this genocide, including the introduction of a more effective ban on imports from Xinjiang produced with forced labor, and the imposition of Magnitsky sanctions to punish those responsible for perpetrating this genocide. The meeting tomorrow between Prime Minister Trudeau and President Biden is an opportunity for Canada to work multilaterally with the United States on this important issue. Merci. Thank you.
Morning. My name is Garnett Genuis. I'm the Shadow Minister for Human Rights International Development, and it's a pleasure for me to be able to be here with my colleague Michael Chong to work with him as well as with survivors and the Uyghur community more broadly. Later today, the House of Commons will vote on our motion to recognize the ongoing genocide of Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims in China. When it comes to international human rights, we've become sadly used to hearing the phrase, "It's complicated," to justify not doing what is clearly the right thing. But what we see before our eyes is not complicated. We see the existence of modern concentration camps. We see horrors that we had hoped were consigned to the past. When you think of slaves being forced to pick cotton, you might initially think of images of the antebellum South, but that description equally describes what is happening in Xinjiang as we speak. We have all heard the testimony about the campaign of forced sterilization, abortion, and IUD insertion, which is precipitously dropping the birth rate among Uyghurs and is demonstrable by the government of China's own data. So this is not a complicated issue. As my colleagues have said, it is time for moral clarity. Large nations are just as bound by international human rights law as small states, and Canada has obligations. Legal obligations as a party to the Genocide Convention, and moral obligations as a nation of human beings. This press conference is important because even at this late stage, the government has not indicated whether or not it supports our motion. And regardless of the position taken by the cabinet, I know that many individual MPs will be grappling with how to use their vote. This motion is likely to pass today with the support of all opposition parties, but we believe the message will be that much stronger and clearer if as many members of the government as possible join with us and show that we are able to stand together on issues of fundamental human rights. We want their support on this. So we are calling on the government to listen to the survivors who are about to speak, to listen and to believe their testimony. Cette conférence de presse est importante parce que le gouvernement n'a pas indiqué s'il appuyait ou non notre motion. Et quelle que soit la position prise par le cabinet, je sais que de nombreux députés se demanderont comment utiliser leur vote. Cette motion est susceptible d'être adoptée aujourd'hui avec le soutien de tous les partis d'opposition. Mais nous croyons que le message sera d'autant plus fort et plus clair si autant de membres du gouvernement que possible se joignent à nous et montrent que nous sommes capables de nous tenir ensemble sur questions de droits fondamentaux. Nous voulons leur soutien à ce sujet. Nous demandons donc au gouvernement d'écouter les survivants qui sont sur le point de parler. Écoutez et croient le témoignage. Merci.
I'm not sure. Do I intervene and translate the introductory notes?
If you could just please invite
Yes, so
the survivors to speak, and thank you for translating.
Sure. Madame Gulbahar. Okay, we'll start with Madame Kalbinur. Kalbinur Hanım, siz gapni başlayın.
Salam xanımlar, efendiler. Ben lager şahidi Kalbinur Sıdık. Sizlerine bugün bana bu kıymetli bu fırsatını, sözlüş fırsatını verdiğiniz için sizlere köp rahmet eyledim.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I am a concentration camp witness, Kalbinur Sıdık, and I'm grateful that you have provided this precious opportunity to speak up. Abzas kılaydım.
Mağla buldum. Ben Şarkı Türkistan'dan Ürümçi şehirde doğulup, östüm. Başlangıç mektepte 28 yıl okutuvchi oldum. 2017 yılı 3. aydan 9. aygacha Ma'rif idorasining o'rinlashtirishi bilan Ürümchidagi erlar lagerida atalmış savadsizlarga Xitoy tili o'tdim, Xitoy tili ders o'tdim. 9. aydan 11. aygacha ayollar lagerida ders o'tdim. Bu jarayonda intayin dahshatli zulmlar, qiynashlar, bosqinchilik va xo'rlashlarni o'z ko'zim bilan ko'rdim va angladim.
Okay. I was born in Urumqi city of East Turkestan. I worked as a teacher in the elementary school for 28 years. As per directives from the Department of Education, I was assigned to teach Chinese language to the so-called illiterates at the men's detention facilities in Urumqi city from March until September of 2017. From September till November of 2017, I was teaching at women's prison. During this time period, I have seen and heard myself the numerous cases of violence, extreme forms of cruelty, rape, and intimidation. The camp's wardens were not considered detained Uyghurs as human beings.
Lager sakçıları, lagerdeki tutkun Uygurlarını adam katarda görmekti. Ularını uruş, kıynaş, palaş kılış, horlaş, piştiğe okşaş, ömület güzüş, piştiğe okşaş, öldürüştün huzurlanatdı. Uygurlarının lagerlarda dozak azabı tartıvatqınını ularga yetmegендek, ularning baldırak ölüp ketişini ümit kılattı ve öz hoş bulattı. Demek lagerdeki erlerinin sakal burutları düşürütülgen, kız ayollarning bo'lsa çaşları düşürütülgen, ularning put qo'llarida kishan, zanjirlangan. Andan keyin chiroyida qat'iy qon didori yo'q, kasalman va oshalang'och. Simasini ham o'ylasam, ko'zlarim intayin yoshga to'ldi. Lagerdagi ayollarning ba'zilari yangi to'y qilgan.
Okay. They were torturing, beating them, insulting them, making them crawl like dogs, and not hesitating killing them too. As if it was not enough to see Uyghur suffering, they wanted them to die as soon as possible. And they were very happy whenever some Uyghur would die. Uyghur men mustache and beards were shaven, women's hair was cut off. Detainees' feet were put in shackles. Detainees' faces were colorless. I cry every time I recall sick and naked detainees sleeping on the cement floor.
Lagerdeki bazı ayollar yangi tug'ut ayollar hattoki ba'zilari chet ellardan majbur qaytirib kelinib, ota-onasi bilan ko'rishmaylam, shu jazo lagerlarga, kamplarga tutib kelinganlar. Andan keyin tug'ut yeshidagi barliq ayollar bu yerda majburiy odat to'xtatish to'g'risini yigizdi, o'qil urdi ularga. Men tunji kelgan kuni odat to'xtamay qansirab ketgan 19 yoshli bir qizning jasadiga shohid bo'ldim. Lagerdagi yosh qizlarning lager saqchilari tarafidan o'pchi bosqinchilikqa uchraydiganligini shu yerdagilardan angladim. Lager saqchilari aroq so'rinlarida o'zlarining lagerdagi qizlarni qandoq dafsanda qildiganligini faxrlanib so'zlashatdi.
Women which I have seen in the camp were women who were recently married, some who gave birth recently, or student girls who were coerced to come back from their overseas studies and detained upon their arrival, even before seeing their parents. All women of reproductive age were given injections to stop their menstrual cycles. On my first day of my assignment in the camp, I have become a witness to the death of a 19-year-old girl who had died because of blood loss. I have heard from the prison's personnel on the existence of the gang raping practices. The prison guardians were boasting openly about how they would rape virgins at the picnicking occasion and after the alcohol consumption. I was having hard time believing them when I was listening to this. Davamlaştırın.
Ben bu ecilişik facialarni anglab özümün kulaklarımga işenmedim. Hatta öňrep yıglap ketdim. Çünki men bir ayal kişi, meningmi kızım bar. Hiç kim bunda horluklarga kalmasın. 2017 yıldan buyan men turupatkan, okutkan şu başlangıç mektep okuvchilarının ota-analary, aka-ajilary bir-birlep gayip boldy. Xitay kommunistlari, Xitay okutquchilari ota-anасы tutub ketilmegen okuvchilarga yaxshi muomala qiladi, normal muomala qiladi. Ota-anасы tutub ketilgen okuvchilarga bolsa, ularning bolalarym xuddi jinoyatchilardek shunchalikmi qattiq ularga muomala qiladi. Ularning xuddi jinoyatchi kabi ularga yaxshi qaramaydi.
I was having hard time believing them when I was listening to this. I was speechless. Because I'm a woman and I'm a mother of a girl, no one should be subjected to such cruelty. Since 2017, in the elementary school where I was teaching, some children's parents, sisters or brothers have gone missing. Ethnic Chinese teachers were mistreating those children whose relatives were taken away. They were treating these children as small criminals. Davamlaştırın.
Bu yetim bolalarga biz dastlabda mektep o'qituvchilarga qarashga majbur qilindi. Majbur bo'ldik. Keyin bundaq yetim o'quvchilar pek ko'plab ketgan bo'lg'achqa, ularni har qaysi yurtlarga bo'lib, yetimlar lagerlariga avatib, yo'q qilyapti ularni. Men shu narsada o'quvchilarimning ko'zlarini mendan muallim nimishqa millatlar ittifoqligini bizli qo'g'daymiz, bizli saqlaymiz, nimishqa bizning ota-onalarimizni aka-ajini tutib ketsa, bu xanzu saboqdoshimiz qo'shib chavoq chaladi degan shu savollarga javob berishdan ojiz edim. Men Uyg'ur o'quvchini urgan, o'qituvchini to'sgan xizmatdoshim Akbarning saqchilar tarafidan urib o'ldirayotganligiga ichinaman, ham qat'iy unutolmayman bu fojiani.
At the beginning, teachers were given the task of taking care of these orphans, but we couldn't cope with this task as the number of orphans grew considerably. These children then were distributed to different places and orphanages. I was having a hard time to answer these children's questions like, why is it only us who should preserve national unity? Why our Chinese classmates applaud whenever our parents are taken away? One of my Uyghur co-workers named Akbar was beaten to death by Chinese police when he had stopped beating of an Uyghur child by Chinese teacher.
2019 yılı ben neçe yüzlügen Uyghur ayollar qatarda 4 saatdan ortiq ücret tuturup mecbur halda tug'maslik operatsiyasi qilindim. Men o vaqtda 2019 yılda 50 yaşta edim. Birden bir qizim chet elda edi. Men tug'mas qilindim. Ömürlük meyip qilindim. Men bu xo'rliqni menga unuta olmayman.
In 2019, davamlaştırın.
Men bilan bir vaqtda neçe yüzlügen Uyghur ayollar tug'mas qilindi u yerda. Mana mushu minutning yuzida men helam shu operatsiyaning ta'siridan kesel azobi tortib o'tiribdiman. Men uyimga yillarcha majburiy o'rlashtirilgan qo'shmoq tuqqan Xitoy kadrlarining erimning oldida turib, menga tap-tapmasdan har xil po'xirlik qilishlarini men qat'iy unuta olmayman. Undan keyin yana shu men o'tirayotgan shu binoda 14 oila ichidagi 10 oilani tutib ketganligini, shularning simasini hozirgacha unuta olmayman.
Okay. In 2019, as any other Uyghur women, I was forcibly sterilized after waiting in line for 4 hours, my turn. At the time, I was 15 years old. My only daughter was abroad. After this surgery, I have become permanently handicapped. I would not forget this painful experience forever. Several hundred Uyghur women became sterile at the same time with me. As I speak right now, I am feeling the post-surgical pain in my body. I would not forget a government-assigned Chinese so-called relative who stayed in our house for years and who was harassing me in front of my husband. I would not forget my 10 out of 14 Uyghur neighbors in the same building where I was living and who've been gone missing, who've been taken away. I would not forget those 104 young Uyghurs who were enforced to work at my husband's plant from a faraway region of Aksu. Gap qilaman.
2019-yılı ben şu yoldaşım xizmat qilayotgan şu zavodga majbur tutib kelgan Aqtu noyisidan kelgan, majbur emgak elib kelgan şu 104 nafar yosh ishchilarni unuta olmayman. Ben bu haqiqatni so'zlashdan bosh tortib baxmadim. Sizlarga so'zlab turayotgan mushu daqiqada mening ocham, aka inilarim shu saqchilarniki tutqunda turyotdi hozir. O'tgan shikab ichidilar menga Xitoy saqchilari necha qatim telefon qilib taklif soldi. Ular endi meni bundan ortiq so'zlamasligimni talab qildi. Ben qarindoshlarimning hayoti badliga sizlarga bu zulmlarni anglashga majburman. Mening so'zligini sizlarning bilgininglar, amaliyotda bo'layotgan zulmning faqat bir fojiasilar. Men shu zulmdan qutulib chiqqan halaylik bir necha ayollarning, bir necha odamlarningki biri bo'laman.
I have decided not to remain silent and speak the truth. At this very moment, as I speak to you now, my sister and brothers are held in Chinese prisons. Within the last 2 weeks, I have received phone calls from Chinese police with threatening texts and phone calls demanding me to cease talking. In exchange of my relatives' lives, I am appealing to you right now. What I'm telling you is just a small portion of the ongoing oppression. Me and other few who were able to get out are lucky ones.
Natsistlar Yahudi qirg'inchiligini yurgizganda dunyo ishonmagandi. Toki shu lagerlar ozod qilingan vaqtda anadagi ular hongtong qolgan u yerga ahvollarni ko'rib, Yahudilar hamma yerda chetga qiqilgan, yordamlarga erishamagan ekan. Mana bugun Xitoy kommunistlari Uyg'urlarni lagerlarga solab, qirg'in qilmoqda. Tunugunki Yahudilar dal bugungi Uyg'urlarning o'zidir. Dunyoda mushundoq fojia yuz beryapsa, Kanadaning yanada mushundoq bir hukumat bilan aloqa o'rnatib, savdo qilayotganligiga mening aqlim yetmaydi haqiqatan.
When Nazis were exterminating Jews, the world did not believe until they have liberated concentration camps. Jews were not able to get any outside help. Today, Chinese communists are holding Uyghurs in the concentration camps and killing them. Yesterday's Jews are today's Uyghurs, and the world is reluctant to acknowledge the truth. The blood money of China is their choice.
Ben bütün dünya halkıdan, cümleden Kanada hükümetinden Uygurlarga yurgizayotgan qirg'inchilikni e'tirof qilishini, Xitoy hukumatining insoniyatga qarshi jinoyatiga amaliy tadbir qo'llanib, Uyg'ur xalqini qirg'inchilikdan qutuldirishini keskin talab qilaman. Bu sizlarning insonlik burchinglar, qo'g'dayotgan qimmat qarashinglar va Kanada xalqi sizlardan kutgan majburiyatinglardir deb o'ylayman. Ko'pchilik rahmat.
I demand the world community, and in particular the Canadian government, to acknowledge Uyghur genocide, to recognize Chinese perpetrated crimes against humanity and save Uyghurs. This is your duty as human being and an obligation to uphold your own moral values. Thank you very much for your attention.
Ben Abdurrahman Kösüp'e degendim.
Okay, I just wanted to show you something.
Oldin qapda ikki qatim bo'ldi saqchilar shundoq men bilan ko'rishib mana tehdit solg'ili, meni hech qanday so'zlama, seni tuqqanlaring hammasi bizning yonimizda turyotdi, mana aka ocha inilaring.
Okay. This is the picture of Chinese policeman who've been calling me and threatening me. He was standing next to my relatives who've been in detention.
Bu şu Ürümçi Bahlan Peyso'nun sakçıxanasındaki bizga mas'ul sakçı Livinjan ismi.
Okay. I even know the name of this gentleman and his location in Urumqi city. He's located in Urumqi police headquarters in one of the districts of Urumqi city.
Just as a reminder to participant, we have about 10 minutes left in the press conference.
Okay. Bizning faqat 10 minut vaqtimiz qoldi. So I will pass to second witness. Peki, Gulbahar Hanım, siz gap kılan vaktimiz belki az. Начните говорить, Gulbahar Hanım.
Mr. Chong, do we have any other participant?
Hello, it's Michael Chong speaking. Yes, there's one more survivor who wishes to give testimony.
Okay, so we have about 10
Yes.
minutes left. Do we take questions afterwards?
Yes, if possible, I'm happy to answer questions
Okay,
afterwards.
we have a maximum of 10 minutes left, so.
Okay. Gulbahar Hanım, gap kılan. I think she's not hearing us, or I will try to reach out to her. Gulbahar Hanım, говорите. Gulbahar, говорите.
Maybe if she could unmute herself, maybe she's muted.
Gülbahar açmadınız. Mikrofonu içip sözlendeydi Gülbahar. Sözlendeydi.
Gulbahar. Мы вас не слышим, говорите, очень мало времени осталось. Okay, I think she's not hearing us well.
Should we go to question and see if we can reestablish connection with the next witness, or?
I'm trying to talk to her. She's not.
But
she's seeing me.
Yeah. Mr. Chong, should we go to questions?
Why don't we go to question? Oh, I think she's unmuted. There we go.
All right.
Алло, говорите. Алло. Gulbahar Hanım, говорите. No, she's not here. She's not answering. I don't know what's happening.
Why don't we go to questions
We will.
from the National Press Gallery? Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay.
So we'll now take questions on the phone. Operator, do we have a first question?
Thank you, Nancy. The first question is from Michael Chong from Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. It's Mike Blanchfield, Canadian Press. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I can.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Listen, so I guess the question is maybe for anybody who wants to answer, and I understand that it's a very emotional testimony, and thank you for giving it. I just wanted to ask if either of the MPs or if the witness wants to talk about the fact that how the Chinese government continues to deny that this is happening. They say it's basically manufactured. It's just not real. They're saying it in Ottawa as recently as the weekend to me. I'm not saying, of course, I agree with any of that, but I'm wanting your position on it, your point of view, because it's important to give you voice. So go ahead.
Okay, if I can translate 1 second. Qalbinur Hanım. Mən sizə tərcümə qilib berək. Hazır bir sual düşdü jurnalistlərdən. Xitayning hozirgacha mushu ishlarni inkos qilayotganligi siz uchun qanday baholasi bo'ldi? Nemishqa buni yolg'on deb deyotdi mushu ishlarni Xitoyning o'zi. Keyin savol berasiz.
Bo'ldi. Xitoylar azaldan yolg'onchi. Xitoylar tarixida rostga qilib baxmagan. Chunki ular bizni vatanimiz Turkistonga bostirib kirgan vaqtida, besvagan vaqtidami biz xalqning bir tal jibjingiz chiqilmaymiz deb kirib ekan, biz ota bo'limizni anglagan shu gaplarni. Mana hozir qadar jibjingiz tutmak bizning qilimizni, jiligimizni sho'rayotdi bular. Uni azab butun o'zimizning vatanim bo'lgan, o'zimizning millatimizni shu yerda yashayotgan xalqni butun qirib o'tirib tugitib, o'zi mustaqil ega bo'lmoqchi bo'ldi. Shunda ashaddiy ishplas. Fashist bular haqiqiy.
Okay. In my opinion, this is a fascist state, and what they've been telling, it's all lies. And this is happening not since yesterday, but since occupation took place, when East Turkestan was occupied by Chinese communists. At the time, we were promised that all our rights will be preserved and there will be no harm. But we see right now that what is happening is open hunting on Uyghurs, and they want to eliminate us, wipe us out as a whole ethnicity.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for the question. It's an important one. the evidence is overwhelming. The evidence has come in the form of high definition, high resolution satellite imagery that has been tracked over time, that documents clearly the building of hundreds of detention centers. It has been documented through reputable news organizations in person with journalists who have snuck into Xinjiang and who have been able to get video and photographic evidence, or news organizations like the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. There have been documents obtained, secret classified Chinese government documents obtained by the New York Times in 2019, hundreds of pages, some 400 pages, I believe, of classified documents that detail in great granularity, a high degree of granularity, the Beijing government's plans, strategies, and on-the-ground tactics when it comes to implementing this plan. There are documents that have been also obtained by the International Consortium of Journalists, also known as the China Files, that have also documented in great detail this evidence. And there are firsthand survivor accounts that we've heard today and that the Subcommittee on International Human Rights has heard, that other organizations have obtained. So it's, and from many other sources. So it's simply not credible that the denials of the government of China.
Mike, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, do you think, what are you doing to try to, it's very noisy on the line, can you hear me? Yeah, what can you do to persuade, yeah, okay, can you, what's your strategy for the rest of the day to gain more support, political support from the government?
Well, our strategy is to continue to outline that Canada needs to uphold its role as a world leader on human rights and dignity, and that the evidence is so overwhelming that we no longer can turn a blind eye, that we have to recognize this for what it is, a genocide, and that we have to work with our allies, including the United States, in this recognition. The Prime Minister has a phone call with the President tomorrow. We are hoping that this will be part of the discussion tomorrow. We know that China is coming up in the bilateral discussion tomorrow, and we hope that this is part of that discussion. More to the point, I'll say this, that the government and believes, as we do, as the official opposition, that Canada must work with allies to uphold the international rules-based system. An integral part of that rules-based system are the international treaties that Canada and countries around the world have signed on to. That one of those treaties is the 1948 Genocide Convention that puts an obligation on Canada to not only prevent genocide, but also to punish the perpetrators of genocide. So if we are serious about ensuring that the international rules-based system that has been in place since the Second World War is upheld and strengthened in the face of increasing authoritarianism around the world, we need to be serious about ensuring that we uphold treaties like the 1948 Convention.
May I remind the participant to keep themselves on mute if you're not speaking? Please, Mr. Masimov, if you don't mind translating for me.
Yes, please. Gulbahar Khanım, пожалуйста, не говорите. Allô? Ok. Si c'est possible de fermer les voix, il ne m'attend pas. Alors, je ne pense pas qu'il m'attend. J'ai essayé à plusieurs reprises.
And we have time for one last question on the phone.
Okay.
Operator?
Thank you. Merci. The next question is from Hélène Bozzetti from Freelance. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Chong. I just wanted to follow up because we've seen the Chinese ambassador over the weekend making some veiled threats to Canada if they were to approve, to endorse this declaration of genocide. I was wondering, are you afraid that this whole thing could have an impact on the two Michaels that are being detained in China?
Thank you for the question. We believe that the government's approach to China isn't working. We believe that equivocating and being passive in the face of these threats to our citizens, these threats to our values in terms of what's going on with this genocide is simply not working. That it only emboldens China to continue down this path of threatening our citizens, such as Mr. Kovrig, Mr. Spaver, Mr. Hussein Jalil, and Mr. Schellenberg, and continue down the path of undermining fundamental human rights as enshrined in the 1948 Convention. So we believe that the government must take a strong stand on the detention of Mr. Kovrig and Mr. Spaver, as it should on the genocide that's taking place in Xinjiang. And so we believe that we have an opportunity here for the government to take that strong stand, and we believe that that is the path forward.
And I understand what you're saying, but are we to assume that the two Michaels could be collateral damages of this fight that needs to be fought?
No, we believe that being equivocal, we believe that that Canada, in equivocating, in being passive in its approach to China, simply emboldens China to continue with these threats and to continue with this behavior. There's a clear pattern here of threats and intimidation, not just with respect to the detention, the wrongful detention of Mr. Kovrig and Mr. Spaver. It has consisted of retaliation against our farmers in the forms of bans on canola, pork, and beef exports. It has continued in the form of foreign influence operations that are taking place here on Canadian soil, where Chinese authorities are threatening and intimidating Canadians, particularly in the Chinese community. And it's taken so many other forms. And we believe that one of the reasons why China continues with this threatening behavior is because they feel they can do it without any consequences. And so we believe that being passive, being equivocal in our approach to Canada-China relations in respect of issues like the Uyghur genocide only emboldens China to continue with these threats. That's why we've long been calling for a reset in the Canada-China relationship. We've long been calling for a new framework to be implemented with respect to Canada-China relations. The government itself implicitly has acknowledged this. They were to have come forward with a new framework last year. Apparently, it went to the federal cabinet in September, where it was nixed. And so we believe it's long past time for them to come forward with this new framework that would take a much stronger stand to defend our interests, such as the two Canadians being held in wrongful detention, and to defend our values in preventing the genocide that's ongoing in Western China.
If I could just briefly add on that as well, that if we allow arbitrary detention to deter genocide recognition, then no Canadian is safe, no Canadian abroad, because any state undertaking human rights abuses will then see it as their interest to use hostage taking as a way to deter Canadian response to human rights abuses. If we go down that road, we are creating a much, much more dangerous situation for all Canadians who are outside of the country.
And this is all the time we have, unfortunately, for today. This concludes the press conference. Thank you.